Asher is underwritten by.
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, live from our Pontchartrain Productions studios on a beautiful day here in New Orleans. Yeah, we love days like this. Be a nice little cool front coming through. We'll start to get a little cool weather, but another beautiful day here nevertheless. Joining us on the program today, talking Saints, LSU, Tulane Pelicans, even going to talk about the Riverboat Classic and a pretty good quarterback up at Southeastern and Cole Kelly is Jeff Duncan of NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, the Advocate, and also Fox 8 Sports. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. A lot of titles there.
Yeah, a lot, but that's good. That's good.
That means it keeps me busy. A lot of hats.
That means the checks are coming through. Hopefully,
sometimes, yes.
Hopefully, no doubt. Before we get started, of course, you're a contributor to Fox 8. You're back with NOLA.com, and of course, now's the time where a lot of people are thinking about Christmas gifts. You got a book out there that I think everybody should really take a hard look at if they're looking for that Saints fan in their life.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, Peyton and Breeze. We've talked about it before on the program. It's out now in paperback, so it's a little more affordable now. You can get them for $16.99 all over New Orleans right now in the local booksellers. I'm getting ready to go around and sign them all in the local bookstores. I would encourage you, if you want interested in one, get out locally, support the local bookstores, or if you want to reach out to me directly on social media, I can get you a signed, personalized copy that's updated with a new chapter on Breeze's retirement.
Oh, great.
And I think it's actually very applicable right now because we see the struggles the Saints are going through in the first year without Drew Brees, the nosedive the offense has taken without him, and I think people will learn a lot about how that offense functions and his greatness by reading the book.
Right. Speaking of Drew Brees, the Bills game in the Dome, Thanksgiving night, halftime. There'll be a ceremony thanking Drew Brees. I don't want people to think that that's the Ring of Honor. It's not. It's just going to be a ceremony to thank him. Nobody's had a chance. Didn't play before crowds last year. So this is an opportunity for the fans to be able to thank him for his years here in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I know they were trying to make that happen. It was hard with his schedule to be able to make it work. He's calling games on NBC now. Sunday night, he's flying all over the country. So this works out very well. It's the first time he's going to be back. The last time he was in the Dome, we all saw him going off the field after the playoff loss to the Bucs, and there was maybe a few thousand people in the stands. Really sad. So this should be a pretty emotional moment, and I think it's going to inspire the Saints. I really do. I think it's going to be a really cool scene.
Well, they need a little inspiration after, again, losing two straight. Titans 23-21 last week. Philly on tap, noon up in Lincoln Financial Field up in Philadelphia. And I thought Sean Payton said it best this week when he was asked about the issues. And Jeff, you and I have talked about it on the radio show. You've talked about it in your columns. I've talked about it on my show. Turnovers, penalties, drop passes. again, the self-inflicted wounds are hurting this team right now.
Yeah, they just don't have that margin for error anymore.
Right, I agree.
You know, their offense is very limited, especially with all the injuries that have piled up. I mean, they played that game against Tennessee without 5 projected starters, including their starting quarterback, their best receiver, and their best running back. So you're not gonna beat anybody making that many mistakes, much less a team like Tennessee. So I came away in some ways encouraged after I watched that game. They were very competitive against a good Tennessee team, and I really think they played about as well as you could expect, and followed their game plan about as well as you could expect. Got down to the fourth quarter, had a chance to tie that game in the last minute, and came up short. But again, the mistakes they make don't leave this team much margin for error to try and win, especially against good teams.
You say you were encouraged. Expound on that if you would.
Well, I mean, I think Tennessee is a Super Bowl caliber team. Now, they were playing without Julio Jones and Derrick Henry. So the Saints wisely double-teamed A.J. Brown, took him out of the game, and pretty much dominated defensively. They gave up some big plays in the passing game, which we can talk about at some point. But I think that killed them in that game, allowing Marcus Freeman, or Johnson, I think it's Marcus Johnson, to have 100 yards receiving, most of them against Marshawn Lattimore. That can't happen, not with this team. This team has to be carried by the defense. The defense is healthy. They're missing C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Everybody else is healthy. Their leaders are all healthy. It's time for that unit to start living up to what we all expect. Their expectations are to be a top 5 defense. They have to play that way and carry this team, because frankly the offense is going to be what it is. I think at this point we know what they are offensively.
You mentioned it. Injuries have really kind of exposed the inexperience and undisciplined depth on this team, and that's been part of the issue. Again, I talked about it this week on the radio show that, in the past, if you were a Saints fan and you're watching the Saints with Drew Brees under center, again with a disciplined team, you saw a team that in a lot of cases didn't kill themselves, didn't make mistakes, and you were waiting on the other team because you knew the other team was going to implode eventually. The Saints have kind of become that team now. Yeah,
I don't know if it's quite that bad, but they've become that team in the last few weeks, no doubt about it. And I go back to that Falcons game. I mean, that's the game you can't let get away from you. Defensively, you can't allow them to have those explosive plays. You just can't have those lapses like they've had in certain games, the Giants game, the Falcons game. But I would say this, they're 5-4. You look around the league, everyone's dealing with this. Almost every team has had these kind of losses. Buffalo loses to Jacksonville. Denver goes into Dallas and beats Dallas. It happens in this league. You got to try to eliminate those weeks as best you can, because the Saints have really left themselves very little margin for error. I really believe this week, this game in Philadelphia is a must-win. I know it's crazy to say it week 10, but it is.
It is.
Considering who they have on deck, Buffalo and Dallas, they have to get this win.
Yeah, I'm with you. And especially, look, I don't look at just the Atlanta game. I look at the Giant game and the Carolina game. Those are 3 games you cannot lose. They're all in the conference, 2 within the division. And then what it does is it hurts you when you have to take on a Super Bowl contending team like the Titans. You play them close and you lose a game like that. You mentioned you've got Buffalo and Dallas on tap, and a Philadelphia team that last year ran all over, again, the defense that was touted as one of, if not the best running defense in the NFL. So I agree with you. This is a must-win on the road.
Yeah, and I do think that the Saints will have a much better game plan, be much better prepared. If you remember, that was, I think, Jalen Hurts' first game as a starter.
No doubt.
I don't think the Saints quite knew what they were getting into in that game. I think they have enough tape on him now. And I also think they're inspired. They realize they've had a 2-game losing streak. And I've tweeted this out. I've written this. The Saints haven't lost 3 games in a row since the start of 2016. Remarkable streak of consistent success. But I think those streaks are going to be upon us in this post-Breeze era.
Right, and of course, I think November has always been a really good month for the team as well. And we haven't seen consecutive loss in November. So again, that's another part of it. A big part of it is obviously Kamara's carrying this team in terms of both for running the ball and also catching the football. His injury was again significant last week, not having him. The good news is that he was limited yesterday. We don't know what he'll be today, but maybe it looks like maybe he'll be back, which again will be a huge boost for this team. And a necessary boost.
I would say he definitely will be back.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, unless he has some kind of injury in practice. I think he could have played last week. I think they were being cautious, thinking we need him for this upcoming stretch.
Right.
And I thought Mark Ingram filled in fine.
Me too.
They didn't really miss Kamara that much. Ingram had a nice 34-yard catch. Might have been the longest catch of his career as far as I know. I thought they ran the ball well. They just got in a hole again, and that's happened now the last 2 weeks where they're trying to dig out. This team isn't really built that way.
Yeah. Especially when you're having problems with the pass catchers, the inconsistency there, the dropping of passes, again, the inability to get separation at times. Look, you're in a lot of the games. You can see it from again your perch in the press box. Just the inability to again break open. Simeon seems to be more apt to be able to throw the ball over the middle than Winston was. A lot of that is a trust factor with the receivers, but at the same time, again, the drop passes, again, not getting the separation has really affected this offense.
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's one, the talent level of the receivers is not where it needs to be, and that's obviously you're missing Mike Thomas. When they went into this, they thought they were going to have him be the number one. You're missing him, and then I think the quarterback play is not quite as good. So it's all this synchronization, inexperienced quarterbacks in this system with these receivers. Trevor Siemian, of course, is a veteran player, but he hasn't been a starter at this level. So he's missing on one pass, or he's putting a ball that's his accuracy is not quite there. He's getting balls batted. I made that point today. Trevor Siemian, Jameis Winston have had more balls batted this year than Drew Brees had in the last 2 seasons combined.
And then you mentioned on your tweet the size factor between those guys.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's these little subtle things in Brees' quarterback play, his ability to slide and find passing lanes, not get the ball batted, his ability to not get stepped on the foot by the offensive lineman, feeling that pressure and getting the ball off as opposed to it getting intercepted. Those things, I think these subtle nuances are what we're all seeing is missing with a Hall of Fame quarterback like Drew Brees that we all took for granted for all these years because they're so subtle you don't even really notice them. The ability to find a passing lane, and now you see a ball get batted down and you think, oh, well, it got batted down. Well, that wouldn't have got batted down with Drew Brees.
Right. And we talked about that before Brees' retirement, that a lot of people did not realize the small things that Brees did that lent itself to winning football, that again, unless you really watched it closely, maybe again it slipped past you, that we're going to be missing this season no matter who was going to be the quarterback.
Right, and I think that's important to note because I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing the quarterbacks there now because I'm not. I just think when you had a player of that caliber, one of the all-time greats, it's anybody that stepped into his shoes was going to pale in comparison to him. And I think also, all the injuries around him, the offensive line's been makeshift, missing those guys. And I think Teron Armstead, getting him back is going to be important. I don't know if he's going to be back this week, but he's constantly in and out of the lineup, and that's an issue the Saints have had the last few years.
It is, and with that said, in a contract year for him, how do you think that affects him going forward?
Well, I don't think he'll be back next year. He might if he comes back at a discounted rate, but he's not going to come back at the rate of a premier left tackle in this league. I don't think the Saints can make that argument. I don't think he can make that argument to them. I think they drafted Landon Young for a reason.
Yes.
I think they want to develop him. I think James Hurst has filled in fine.
He has done a great job.
He's fine. So I think the Saints look at that as this is an area, if we're going to go forward, where we have to save some money.
Talk about Simeon and his performance thus far.
I like what I've seen from him. Frankly, I think he's done about as well as anybody could expect for a third-string quarterback. He's played with poise. He's in command of the offense. He's limited. There's no doubt about it. But I think he's avoided mistakes, and that's the most important thing, I think, right now. The way this team's built defensively, they're going to run the ball. They can't afford turnovers. And I think that's been hammered into Jameis Winston. It's being hammered into Trevor Siemian. And so far, those two have avoided those and kept them in these games. That's why I keep hammering the point of the defense has to step up.
Right.
Because they should be carrying this team. This offense isn't going to carry the team.
Jeff, is the reason why we have not seen Taysom Hill at the quarterback position as much as maybe a lot of us, myself included, thought we would is because of the injury?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, Taysom even talked about that last week. He said going into that game against the Falcons, he did not even clear protocols till Thursday. Okay. Well, if you know how the game plan's put together, they have to start on Wednesday with who's going to be the starting quarterback. So they really had to go with Trevor Siemian. I think he played well enough in that game. I think he's played well enough against Tennessee to where now they feel like let's just stick with what we have. Taysom tapped out of the game last week after I think he took a shot to his hip and wasn't quite 100%. I think he missed at least one series and came back in to the game. So I don't think he's quite 100% right now.
They caught him a foot injury this week when he was out yesterday.
Yeah. So I don't think he was quite 100% in either game, and I think that's why we see his pitch count down.
Talk about Peyton as a play caller, having to deal with, again, first a game plan for Winston. Now again, having to deal with Trevor Siemian, what his strengths and weaknesses are. And again, with a little sprinkle of Taysom Hill in there as well. This has to be a challenge for him.
Well, I think that's why we see him lean heavily into the running game.
Yes.
And when things have to go well when you're leaning into that running game. And what I mean by that is the Falcons game, if you remember, Saints ended up with a lot of first down penalties, either holds, false starts, these things putting them in behind the chains and 1st and 15, 1st and 20. Suddenly the running game goes out the window. You're off your schedule. Your game plan starts to go out the window when you get down by 2 scores. I think he's taken a look at their personnel without Mike Thomas now, especially, and said, well, I've got to play to my strengths. My strengths are this offensive line, these running backs.
Yes.
And I think a part of that group, including Ingram and Kamara, would be Taysom Hill. And he's seen some of the limitations we've seen in the receiving core, the inability to make contested catches.
Yes.
The inability of the quarterback to maybe put the ball exactly where it needs to be because they're not that experienced. And I kind of laugh sometimes at this separation stuff because I think about all the years I watched Marcus Colston play, and I'd love to know what his separation numbers were. I mean, he doesn't run away.
But different quarterback, a guy that was a pinpoint accuracy.
That's what I'm saying.
Knew where to put the ball.
But nobody cared about the separation then. This is the NFL. People don't separate very much. They're great athletes out there. I watched Devontae Smith, who's on the Eagles this week, and he's not a great separation guy. He goes up and makes plays in traffic. That's what Colston did. That's what Mike Thomas does. They don't have that right now. They don't have that guy on this team. But it's not about separation. It's about making a play. And I think sometimes that's gotten overplayed. It's become the metric that everybody wants to try out.
The trade for Ingram was genius, first of all. Again, not having to give up a pick a couple years down the line. It's a 7th-round pick. And what he has meant to this team. You saw it last week with Kamara out, but now it's again compounded also with Taysom Hill out right now. The guy doesn't look like he's lost a step. Again, he knows the offense. He's come in and become a leader as he was before. But again, the physicality that he brings to this team now, the ability to run the football without, again, having Taysom Hill on the field is huge for this team.
I thought he played tremendous against Tennessee. Now, Sean Payton told him, hey, we're going to put the ball in your hands, big guy. And I think he rose to the challenge in that game. Now, can he keep doing it? I mean, the knock on Ingram after he left Baltimore was he can't make people miss anymore. And that happens in this league.
Sure.
It's the knock right now on Adrian Peterson. If you watch him play, very, very rarely is he making guys miss. It's hard at that age in this league. It's a young man's league. But I do think for the role that they brought him in to play, he's perfect. He knows the offensive system. He contributes in the passing game. Excellent pass protector, picking up the blitz. And that's how this team's going to have to win. They're going to have to win with the running game and the defense.
Heard anything about the Harris DUI and possible sanctions by the NFL yet?
No. I mean, I think we're waiting on the NFL to rule on that. They've got a list of those things in their office that they have to rule on.
Anticipated happening this year, though?
I really don't know.
I mean, again, I have no idea. Closer you get to the playoffs, obviously these games mean much, much more when you start throwing out suspensions like that. Obviously, that could be critical. Special teams have played well, with the exception, again, of the place kicker. Again, Johnson missed 2 PATs the other day. They bring in another kicker. Talk about it.
Well, the leash is short right now on Brian Johnson. I mean, I think the Saints are in a little bit of a quandary. They want to stick with a young guy who's got talent and, try and see if he can develop and get through some of these early hiccups. And it's not uncommon. Look around the league. There's a lot of guys struggle early, and then they get their footing. Will Lutz had that a little bit. If you go back and look at his early in his career and find that consistency later on. The one thing I've noticed about him, I remember being on the field. His first game was in Seattle. We were out there. I was on the field doing my Fox 8 stuff before the game, and I was just paying attention to him on his kicks. He missed every kick to the left. When he missed, it was always to the left, and that's how he missed both these extra points. Can't miss extra points at the NFL level consistently.
No.
Maybe one here or there, but not when the operation is fine, which both of them were. It changes how the game is played.
Right.
It changed how Tennessee played defensively. It changed how Sean Payton had to call the game.
Right.
All of a sudden, 1 point can change everything, and it ultimately ended up contributing to this loss.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was his third extra point he's missed since he's been here. Right.
That's what I mean. And it's I think Sean Payton's at his wit's end right now because he's just wanting someone to consistently make the makeable kicks.
Right.
He's not asking you to carry and be Morton Anderson.
Right.
He just wants somebody from 45 and in that's going to make 95% of their kicks.
No doubt about it. Defense huge this week, again, in terms of stopping the run, which has been their forte. But a very different situation with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. He is, again, what I would hope Taysom Hill would have been. Again, more of a running quarterback, but still has the ability to get the ball downfield. It's going to be a huge challenge. The Saints secondary has been exposed a bit. They were exposed last year, and I think offensive coordinators have really caught on. Again, they are dynamite. They're one of the best at vertical routes, man to man. But when you put them in a situation where they got to get involved with crossing routes, they struggle. Especially Lattimore struggles there. Be interesting to see again if Philly maybe copies what other teams have done in terms of these crossing routes. And again, that's on Dennis Allen to be able to adjust here as well.
Yeah, those are the classic man beaters.
Yeah, no doubt.
Man coverage beaters. And it's really a lot of it's technique, and the Saints have struggled with it for years. I mean, really, it's been a few years now. These shallow crosses, using rub routes. That's how you beat man-to-man coverage in the league. The Saints play about as much man-to-man as any secondary in the league, so that's what you're going to get a diet of until you show. And it's interesting is sometimes it's not the elite receivers that are beating them on it. It's these second and third options.
Right.
I guarantee you the Saints are going to see a lot of that this week until they show they can consistently stop it.
And the other thing is the pass rush, just the inconsistent pass rush that we continue to see on this team. Everybody wants to point to Trey Hendrickson. Davenport has been in and out the lineup when he's there. He's played terrific thus far, but they're just not getting a consistent pass rush on the passer week in, week out.
Yeah, Davenport I thought showed that last week, but they have not. And look, it's hard to rush the passer in the league anymore. We see roughing the passer call, how difficult it is. But David Onyemata, I think, has shown some flashes of what he once was, but it's taken him a while to get back into the swing of things. This week, I don't think it's going to be a big pass rush week. This week's all going to be about stopping the run and not letting him outside the pocket. I mean, this is a guy, Eric, I think he's 12th in the league in rushing. We're talking about Jalen Hurts, his quarterback. He's run for more yards than Alvin Kamara. He's a threat to scramble. I think 300 of his 520 rushing yards are on scrambles.
Yes.
It's going to be a huge point of emphasis. It's kind of that mush rush, I think, this week. Keep him in the pocket.
Got to. And again, it's going to be. And then you look at the next three games. I mean, look, to me, it's the most physically taxing stretch of the season because you've got 3 games in 11 days. You're taking on Philly in a tough place to play at the Link. Again, against a tough, this is a different offense than what you're used to seeing in the NFL week in, week out. And then you've got Buffalo and Dallas back to back on a Thursday night. 2 physical teams as well. So again, if there are injuries, it's tough to get back when you have a stretch like that, 3 games in 11 days.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add, in addition to Jalen Hurts, Buffalo has Josh Allen.
Right.
Then you have Dak Prescott, 3 mobile, kind of modern era quarterbacks that are going to test this team not only with their arms but also with their legs. That's why I think this game against Philadelphia is a must get. I think if they can win this game and steal one of those 2 at home, which I think they can do.
Me too.
I think they're going to be in great shape.
Right. That was going to be my next question. I believe they're still a playoff team. Do you?
Oh yeah, I definitely do. But they can't lose this game on Sunday. Right. I don't see how they get in the playoffs if they lose to Philly.
Right.
Unless they up and surprise me and win. I see really 4 major hurdles the rest of the way, and 3 of them in a row coming up here, and then down in Tampa.
Yeah.
I think the other games, I think the Saints should be prohibitive favorites.
Jeff Duncan is our guest from NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, and the Advocate. Also contributed to Fox 8 Sports. We'll take a quick break. We come back. We'll talk LSU, Tulane. We'll get into a little bit about the River Bell Classic. Also Cole Kelly, quarterback of Southeastern. And we'll talk about the Pelicans and their tough year as well. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll hear from our underwriters. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Jeff Duncan of the TimesPicayune.com, advocate, and also Fox 8 Sports is our guest. Let's talk LSU, 4-6, 2-5 in the conference. They lose in double overtime to Arkansas. First, I want to ask you, talk about the effort of the team.
Oh, look, I mean, these guys are outmanned right now. So many injuries that they have. It's hard, I think, to continue to get motivated when your record is lopsided like it is, and you're not out there with your top, some of the leaders on your team.
But I think defensively they have played so much better than they did earlier in the season.
Yeah, they certainly have. I agree, and I think they, the head coach is leaving. You're a little bit of a lame duck situation.
Right, sure.
So I think it's difficult in that conference, to win games. I mean, 4-6 right now, but it goes back. I mean, I'm looking at the standings before I came over today, and LSU's in last place in the SEC West. That can't happen.
No.
That's why Ed Ogeron's out of a job.
Yep, no doubt. Uncertainty at the quarterback position. Nussmeier comes in last week. He was okay. Wasn't spectacular. Again, learning curve there. Again, he is who he is, gunslinger. What happened in overtime. Johnson looks to me like he's plateaued a bit. More importantly, again, his mechanics are not where they need to be. Last year, when he played, he was more of a guy that got out of the pocket. His mechanics were there. He seems to be holding the ball too long, not stepping into throws. And now it looks like they're going back to Johnson. So again, the uncertainty there. Your thoughts about the quarterback position?
Well, I don't know if either one of these guys right now is going to be the long-term answer. I don't know. I mean, I think they both have to have, you have to have a little bit of patience with them, and I think they or might be under a new offensive coordinator next year, for all we know.
Based on what we're hearing about Pete's right now, I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah, so I mean, that's difficult, I think, to continue to play under different offensive systems and try to produce. I also think it's difficult in this environment that they're in right now. I just feel like, they're playing against very good teams with a lot more on the line than LSU. It'd be interesting to see if they get an offensive-minded coach, which is what I think they will.
Yeah, me too.
I think, I wouldn't be ready to give up on them.
Right.
But I don't know if they'll be the long-term answer, whereas maybe Walker Howard is.
I will say this, defensively, where, again, they really looked horrible most of the season, they have changed the scheme. They are blitzing more, and it really lends to the strengths of the athletes they have on the field, and they have played much better. Even in losing efforts, they have played much better. I mean, even the linebacker position, again, Clark has turned himself into a guy that looks like he might be drafted in the NFL now based on what he's done this season.
Yeah, he's been one of the stars of the team.
Really has.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, their back end's been, really hurt by injuries and attrition. And in this conference, it's very difficult. But I do like what they've done. I think the coaching on that side of the ball has adjusted. And that game against Alabama was very impressive considering everyone thought they were going to get killed. What were they, 4 touchdown underdogs?
Yeah, Jeff, I didn't even really cover the game that week, okay? We talked about the coaching search, in anticipation of a blowout, and they went out there and played their hearts out.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. I give them a lot of credit for that. But you can't lose to Arkansas, I mean, but the LSU is where they are right now. Let's turn our attention to the coaching search. Look, the big name right now, and where there's smoke, there's fire. You and I both know this in this business. Lincoln Riley rumors are heating up. 8 years, $96 million, about $12 million a year. At first, when I heard that, I said, "There's just no way they're offering him more than Saban's getting." And then I hear Tucker has parlayed the LSU job into an extension with Michigan State, 10 years, $95 million, about $9.5 million. That's according to Detroit Free Press. Are you buying into the Lincoln Riley rumors that are out there right now, or do you think that is just smoke?
Well, I think it makes sense on a number of fronts in that, and I've said this a number of times, I don't know who Scott Woodward's going to hire, but I know he's not going to hire. And I think that's the easy way to look at this hire is I don't think he's going to hire a coach from a lower level division, lower division.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to hire.
So like a Billy Napier.
Right. I don't think he's going to hire a up and coming assistant like a Joe Brady.
Okay.
I think he's going to hire a pedigreed, established head coach at a big-time program. I think he's big game hunting. That's been Scott Woodward's MO. It's his track record wherever he goes. And I think he wants someone that is going to embrace the challenge that LSU poses. And that is, it's a little bit of a political minefield being the head coach at LSU, and you're in the division that's the most competitive in all of college football with the greatest modern dynasty in the sport, and someone that's not going to be afraid of that challenge, but actually will embrace it.
Right.
So that's going to take someone with some chops.
Right.
It's going to take someone like a Lincoln Riley or a Jimbo Fisher.
Right.
And I'm just saying that's what I think he's looking for.
Yeah.
He's looking for someone that can win national championships. To do that, you got to kind of go through Alabama. So that's why I think it eliminates a lot of people. And I always felt like it eliminated Mel Tucker, in my opinion.
Right.
I'm not saying Mel Tucker's not a great coach.
No.
I just don't know if he was the guy looking at those qualifications.
Well, he parlayed that into a pretty good deal.
Sure did.
Which a lot of coaches do during this time.
Sure, it's what it's about.
There's no doubt about that. The issues with, again, possible sanctions, Title IX, again, we know that LSU self-sanctioned themselves last year, not going to a bowl game, taking away scholarships. Do you think that is a possibility that may scare a coach away? That again, that maybe they're coming to a situation where they may be stripped a bowl game and possibly scholarships going forward? No, that won't have an effect at all. Scott Woodward's making this hire. Scott Woodward knows all these things. I'm sure he's talking to the coaches' representatives right now about this exact thing. Right. They're going to have the support of this athletic director, who's probably as highly regarded as any AD in the country. So these coaches are going to look at this job differently than when Joe Alleva was here. And I think it makes it a much more attractive position than when Joe Alleva was here. If you have a short list, what is it? Well, I think we've mentioned some of the names, some of the people. I think it's going to be someone like that, somebody that's established at a big-time job that is, understands how big a job LSU is. I mean, LSU is a difficult job. It's not an easy job. No doubt. Ed Ogeron was a good example. It ate him alive. He couldn't handle it. Being the guy he was. It's a difficult job, but again, if I'm a head coach of a major program, and I'm looking at the landscape of college football, and I look at LSU with, again, the only standalone university in a state that's fertile with recruits each and every year, especially if I'm an offensive coach, the type of players, the athletes that are being put out. And then I look at the last two coaches that have won national championships there, and Les Miles and Ed Ogeron. I'm saying to myself, if they can win national championships there, I can win a national championship there. No doubt. And that's why I think with Scott Woodward now running things, it becomes a prime job, one of the top 3 jobs in college football. But one of the things that I think does make it difficult is Alabama's the standard in the sport, and that's who you're being measured by, and they are way ahead of you right now. Well, and then of course you've got Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC in a couple of years, which is going to make that much tougher. That's why I think the Lincoln Riley to LSU makes sense. For Oklahoma, a place where they don't have a great fertile recruiting ground, where they have to go into Texas and be able to recruit. Well, then they'll be going against 2 SEC teams in Texas and Texas A&M in Texas, and then the situation with, again, being in Louisiana, having the fertile recruiting ground, then the ability to go into Texas and pluck what you need, other states in the South, and then nationally. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the type of athletes that are coming out of Louisiana, it seems like a fit for Lincoln Riley. The only thing I'm hesitant on is Scott Woodward keeps this thing very, very close to the vest, and there's a lot of smoke out there right now, which in some cases means that maybe that's a smoke screen.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. I mean, I started out at the Times-Picayune in 1999 as the beat reporter when Jerry DiNardo was let go and Nick Saban was hired. I covered that. And I can tell you there is more smoke that comes out of LSU than any other university in the country about this kind of stuff, because getting back to what I'm talking about, political minefield, you have the board of supervisors, you have TAF, you have so many people at LSU that want to be power brokers, that think they know what's going on, and there's leaks and rumors everywhere. It's one of the hard things about covering that beat. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in it just because I know Scott Woodward a little bit, and I know he doesn't talk to very many people about these kind of things.
When do you anticipate the coach being named?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I think it'll happen sometime closely after the season. But I know Scott Woodward has told me one thing, and that is he doesn't care about the recruiting part of that.
So he's not worried about those incoming recruits?
Not at all. He isn't worried about losing a decommitment here or there. He's already lost a couple. He's trying to get the right person for the job.
Got it. Let's touch to Tulane, 1-9, 0-6 in the American. They lose to Tulsa, 20-13 in overtime. I don't think anybody saw this coming this year. I mean, look, first of all, I have to preface everything every time we talk about Tulane. 4 top 25 teams on their schedule, played 2 of those teams. They were number 2 at the time in the nation. That, again, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, SMU, Ole Miss. That is a brutal schedule for anyone, especially a Tulane.
Yep. Yeah, no, I thought going into this season they'd overscheduled. I think they knew that. But I thought they'd been more competitive.
Me too.
There's no doubt about it.
I thought so.
They've lost some games. You know, the East Carolina game in particular I think of. It's just been a lost season. And I think they're going to have to regroup in this offseason and get back on track because they've lost a ton of momentum this year. It's one thing to, not have a winning season. It's another thing to go where they're going right now. And I think they got a big game against South Florida this week. They need to win this. It's the seniors' last game. Kind of reestablish themselves, finish strong on this year.
I think Fritz even said it this week that, again, you get the last couple games on the schedule, and then all of a sudden, against South Florida and a tough Memphis team, maybe, again, you change the narrative a bit going into next year.
Yeah.
It's hard to overcome what you've seen this year, but maybe, again, you have a better taste in your mouth going on in the season. How much does this hurt Willie Fritz? His reputation, what he's done in building this program. It looked like it was on an upward trajectory, and now all of a sudden, a huge dive.
Well, I think you can get away with 1 year of this. I mean, he's got to follow up, though. I mean, they have to have a strong offseason recruiting, and they have to, figure out the staff. They're going to make staff changes or not. I do think it underscores, though, just the importance of coaching at that level. And look at any level. I mean, LSU, my biggest concern going into this season was 2 new coordinators. How were they going to handle it?
Right.
Both of them were inexperienced in those roles.
It mirrors what happened with Tulane as well.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I really think those things get overlooked sometimes, in a competitive environment like that. And Willie Fritz, I think, is an excellent coach. I think he's the perfect guy for this job. But they've got to get back on track. They've done a good job recruiting in some areas, but it's clear defensively the losses they had in the offseason, they just weren't able to replace.
Right. Well, when you get guys that are NFL caliber players that graduate or move on to the NFL, and you're not replacing them with NFL caliber players, you're going to see a drop off, and they did.
Yeah.
They were counting on some guys to really step up that just didn't play up to, again, the standards of the guys that had left, and then you could see the drop off there. And then there's the other thing. Pratt has been a terrific quarterback, but he's been injured since the Ole Miss game. I mean, he's not the same player he was, and that's no fault of his. He's given everything he can. Iabetta going out early with his injury hurt them as well. So again, the quarterback position is very, very critical in this offense. Not having Spears for most of the season, getting him back, that's a guy that might play on Sundays when it's all said and done. So again, it's been a really, really just a mixture of a lot of things at one time that happened to this program that put them on this descent.
Yeah, I think the last 3 weeks they haven't scored more than 13 points in a game. In that conference, I mean, you've got to get in the 30s to be competitive. I mean, SMU can score on anybody. Houston, with Dana Holgerson can score, Memphis can score. Offensively, I know Chip Long was expecting this to be a very good team, and they've struggled because of some of the things you talked about, quarterback position being banged up. And you're right, Pratt looks like a guy that could use a good long off season to heal up.
I say it every time. He reminds me of Archie Manning with the Saints in the early years, running for his life, constantly injured, but trying to play through it. I mean, just playing on guts. I mean, when I see this kid run around, I go back in my mind's eye and I say, that's Archie all over again at Tulane Stadium. Okay, but I mean, that's just the way it was. And hopefully again, he'll come back next year. He's already said he's going to put weight on. He's going to put some muscle on. He needs to get a bit bigger, and he does if he's going to have to go run and compete like that. But we'll see. We'll see again how this affects them in recruiting. We'll see how this affects them going forward. But I will say this, and I've said this over the last few weeks, and Tulane fans don't like it. We say on this show, I'd like to get your take. The new American, the American they're going to be going, that's going to be there once the defections head over to the Big 12, I think is the best thing for this Tulane program. They are not an elite program. They're not a program that can compete with SEC teams or even the upper echelon of the American. But absorbing some of these CUSA teams will put them on more of an even playing field. And I think that, again, this program will have the ability to be able to vie for championships in every sport in this new conference that's not as strong as the previous conference.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, and I think that's a fair point. Look, Cincinnati has built themselves into, they're basically like a Big Ten team.
Right.
They're not going to be competitive with that program. But I think a model like an SMU gives something for Tulane to look at and say, if they can do it at SMU, we should be able to do something similar.
Right.
Or at least where every 4 or 5 years you're maybe a top 25 team, and then you go to bowls in between. Maybe you do have a down year. But you want that consistency. And I think they felt like they were on that track until this season. Yeah,
well, and then the other thing is, again, when you start looking at Tulane, there will be down the line more shifting of conferences in the next, in 5 years from now.
Yep.
So if you can get this program on the right track where they're winning championships, where they're winning consistency, in a big market, TV market like New Orleans, you will be absorbed by another conference down the line. But again, you got to get there. They're not even close yet.
Yeah, and it's funny talking to people in the high levels of college football. I mean, they think this thing's going to keep shifting to where there may only be 30 or 40 schools at the very top.
Right.
So there's going to be a big middle class, and I think Tulane needs to position themselves to be a part of that.
I would agree, and I think in a new American they can do that.
Yes,
if they continue on the track they're in. And look, I said this to Tulane fans all the time. You guys are, look, I know, I grew up as a Tulane fan, okay? I mean, I went to the games in the 70s. I was a water boy for the Tulane teams in the mid-70s. So, again, I know the pain of Tulane fans. But imagine, again, the ability to know that week in, week out, you have a chance to win, and you have a chance to win championships. That turns the whole psyche of the program around. And I think that's what they, instead of, again, being upset about the fact that they weren't invited to be in the Big 12 or they haven't had a chance to get to the ACC, or look at where you are now, look at where your programs are now, and look at the opportunity here to grow the program and maybe a conference that's not so competitive.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cincinnati is a great example in a lot of ways. I mean, they built their program into a top 25 level program, but they sustained it for a number of years. And then they took another leap with Luke Fickell, to where now they're an elite program. It takes time to do that, and Tulane's not anywhere close to that right now. I mean, they've got a lot of, obviously, hurdles that a lot of other programs don't have.
Right, with academics.
Yes, with academics. But I think having a consistent, a consistent coach like Willie Fritz gives them a chance.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, we'll see how it plays out, but I think better days are ahead for Tulane. I really do. All right, let's talk about the Riverbell Classic. Southeastern's 8-2. They're 6-1 within the Southland. Nichols is 5-5, 4-3. Nichols is out of the playoff hunt, but Southeastern is right in the middle of it. But the real reason I want to talk about this game is they got a pretty darn good quarterback at Southeastern. Transferred from Arkansas, has played. He's in his final year, fifth-year senior over at Southeastern. Cole Kelly has torn up the Southland Conference this year. He has been the best player on the field most times when Southeastern takes the field.
Yeah, he's a unique athlete, big, tall guy, rangy guy, a very good athlete as well. Big arm, can move around. He's kind of the prototype for what is going on in the NFL. I made some calls on him, Eric, to some of my scouting sources, and they've got their eye on him. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think he started the year as is like an undrafted free agent, maybe 7th round pick. I think he's played himself higher than that. I think once he gets to the offseason and the combines, in the Senior Bowl, those kind of things, that'll be his chance. What I love about him is he's lifted the whole program, and I'm a big believer in that position. When you lift a program like Drew Brees did at Purdue. Drew Brees took Purdue to the Rose Bowl. They hadn't been in 30-something years before that, and they haven't been since then.
Right.
One guy can lift a program like that at that position. And I bring this up. I was going to mention this because I remember when I was covering my first year covering the NFL, I was in Nashville when Steve McNair got drafted by the Tennessee Titans. And the 2 quarterbacks coming out that year were Kerry Collins from Penn State and Steve McNair from Alcorn State. And I remember talking to Floyd Reese, the GM, after they had selected McNair. And I said, well, why did you all like McNair more than Collins, knowing he'd not played against good competition? And I said, didn't you wonder what he would have done if he was in the Big Ten going against all that elite competition? He said, well, the way we looked at it was the opposite. What if Kerry Collins was playing at Alcorn State? Would he have lifted Alcorn State the way Steve McNair did? And I think that is an important way to look at it sometimes. I think everybody always goes the other way.
Yeah, sure.
And they never think, especially a quarterback, what would it be like if someone else were playing quarterback at Southeastern right now? Would they lift that program the way Cole Kelly does? So I think that's a feather in his cap, the way he's taken that program and taken them to another level.
Yeah, I agree. And look, quarterback is always NFL teams go out of their way to scout quarterbacks. It's the most important position on the field. And if somebody feels they can play on the next level, they're going to get you. They'll find you.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're Southeastern and Hammond or not.
We're seeing it right now. I mean, Trey Lance, goes high in the draft. I mean, Carson Wentz. I mean, it doesn't matter anymore. I think they know you still got to have the skill set. But I like what I see from him. I'm really eager to go watch him play in person. I'm going to try and get up to a game in the playoffs.
There you go. Let's shift gears to the Pelicans. Yeah, we got to talk about it. 2-14. Just your overall thoughts, and then we'll get into some specifics on where they are after 16 games.
Well, I mean, they're the worst team in the league right now.
Right.
I mean, obviously they're missing Zion Williamson, but there are also some other reasons. I loved what I heard from Josh Hart the other night about not making excuses, not trying to say blame it on youth. Right. I mean, I've heard too much of that from Pelicans camp over the last 5 to 10 years, which is exactly what I think Pelicans fans have grown frustrated with. Yes. This team does not really have a dog on the team, I don't think. They don't have a dog mentality. They're missing, I don't think that's Brandon Ingram's DNA. And without Zion Williamson out there, they don't have that alpha. I don't think they're going to beat very many teams until he gets back.
What's tough about it is, again, you're building this team around Zion and he's not there. But also, again, the other pieces on this team that you have invested in, I'm talking about young pieces, and having those guys grow. When you get to your 3rd year in the league, you should be making that jump, okay, in a lot of cases. We've seen a little bit of that out of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I've said it before. I think, again, his game, when I look at his game, I think that he has to be a guy that has to strive for a triple-double every night. And when I say that, I mean don't settle for the outside jump shot. Okay, the ball's in your hand, attack the basket, but attack the basket with the mentality of, again, facilitating. Your shot's going to come. He's ambidextrous. He can score on either side of the bat with either hand. He's a guy that can hit the outside shot within rhythm, and he's a pretty decent passer. But again, he gets caught up in this, 0.5 seconds, throw the ball up, and I think it's kind of retarded his progress. If he would be more disciplined and be a guy that was more of a facilitator with his teammates, I think, again, I don't know if he'd be a triple-double guy, but he'd be a guy that would getting 5-6 assists a night. He can get double digits rebounds, and he's going to score simply because he's the scorer. See, I haven't seen the development of these young players. And maybe it's the fact that, again, 3 coaches in 3 years have really hurt that.
Well, I think the development of Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jackson Hayes is critical
no doubt.
to this franchise. I mean, they were a huge linchpin in this whole building process, this roster construction. They were a part of it. And it's hard sometimes for me to judge just because of what you're talking about. They've been through different coaches, different systems. I just think there's been so much instability,
right,
including with the lineups and the injuries, and without seeing a roster that was built around Zion Williamson, who's the main cog.
Right, and he's not there.
It's kind of what we're seeing going on right now with the Lakers. When LeBron's out of the lineup, they're not very good because he's the guy that everything's built around.
Yes.
And so I think it's hard, really, really hard to judge them right now until Zion Williamson is back. When that is, it sounds like it's not going to be until December.
Right.
And can they dig out of a hole? I don't see that happening. I mean, that would be about 20 games he's missed, a quarter of the season. And I think it's going to be difficult for David Griffin to survive if they don't make the playoffs again. And I don't know if they can do it considering the hole they're going to be in.
I would agree with that as well. Look, right now, I've said, I mean, you're pretty much out of it by Thanksgiving. And the best you can hope for is, again, vying for a 10th seed. A playing game. That's what you're shooting for. Where, again, the expectation was, somewhere between a 6th and an 8th seed before the season started. Obviously thinking that Zion was going to be there. But again, it comes back down to, again, the development. This is a team that went with youth, okay? And then they tried to mix some veterans in. And we haven't seen the development of the young players to where they need to be. I'm watching Tyler Hero last night, and I'm saying to myself, okay, that's a guy that struggled a little bit last year, but you see the development. I see a little bit of that in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I don't see as much as I need to with Jackson Hayes. He's lost on the court defensively. And when you have to go from a Valanciunas to a Jackson Hayes, you see the drop-off immediately in terms of defensively on the court. Kyra Lewis is now at the back of the bench. He's not even part of the rotation at this point. When you invest a lot in young players like that, you have to see incremental growth, and we're not seeing it as much as we need to for this team to be a 500 team, much less again a team that can compete for the 10th spot.
Well, and I think losing Ingram for as long as they lost him, that was a death blow.
Oh, no doubt.
Because you could almost survive, I think, without Zion for a few games and at least hang. But losing him for as long as they did, this team isn't going to beat anybody, I think, with those two guys out of the lineup. Now, on the encouraging side, I do think Graham and Valanciunas were good offseason additions. I think they've upgraded with those additions. But losing Zion Williamson was just critical. And look, he's had a very stop and start, inconsistent start to his career. He's had some great flashes, but I mean, he's going to have to be accountable too, I think, when he gets back to being more mature, kind of taking care of himself better, and deciding if he wants to truly be great.
Well, I agree with that. And a lot of that has to do with some of the things I've talked about on the radio show and the TV show, is that great players, no matter through the annals of time in the NBA, and even I don't care what that sport is, you take that off season to work on your game to get better. And one of the things I wanted to see this year was, okay, I know Zion can score around the basket. All right, I know that Zion is a player that is a physical phenom. Okay, I mean, very, very difficult to stop. But what else are you doing? Do you have a mid-range shot? Do you have the ability to step out at some point down the line and shoot that three-point shot? What are you doing in terms of he's a 27-point scorer a game, but he's a seven rebounds? What are you doing that you're not a double? This guy should roll out of bed and get double-figure rebounds. He's not doing it. That's about effort and energy. What are you doing on the defensive end to be able to make yourself better? Not just, again, individual defense, which has been horrible, but team defense as well. And all those things are things that should have been worked on in the offseason, and we have no clue whether that even happened in this offseason because of this injury. And then the injuries that continue to set him back year in, year out. And then when you want to throw something else in there, Jeff, again, the dishonesty with the fan base on, again, where he is with his injuries as well. All that really kind of goes into wondering, again, if Zion is a long-term answer here in New Orleans.
Well, and I think the lack of transparency certainly hurt them in this regard.
No doubt.
And I think that was organizational more than anything else. I don't know if that was a call by Zion's camp. This is the modern NBA, and a lot of that stuff is kind of happens this way, unfortunately. But it didn't help with the fan base. There's no doubt about it. It caused some distrust. And if you notice, they've been providing updates now almost every week because they rightfully got a lot of blowback for how they handled that. But, again, they're going to be in such a deep hole.
Right.
I just don't see a lot of hope for them getting out of it. Maybe they scratch into the 10 seed, but I don't know. I just think it's been very disappointing. No. You can make a case, a very strong case, that the Pelicans would have been better off with Ja Morant. than Zion Williamson.
No doubt.
And no way you know that at the time. Everyone in the league would have taken Zion Williamson.
Yes.
But the way it's played out, it's certainly Memphis is in much better shape than New Orleans.
But a lot of that is on Zion's back. I'm sorry. You got to take – it is your responsibility, professional athlete, to take care of your body. And again, if you know you have a weight problem, then again, whether it's getting a personal chef, a dietitian, whether it's
he has a personal chef.
Okay, well then whatever you got to do at that point to keep yourself in shape, you have to do it. And look, we've seen it. We've seen these fluctuations in terms of his weight. Now again, often injured. It's frustrating for again the fans, but it's got to be frustrating for his teammates as well. He is such a ball dominant player that when he comes back on the court, everything you're doing now changes once again.
Yeah, but I just don't know if the lack of conditioning led to his foot injury.
Right.
I mean, I think that could just be bad luck. He may have just had some bad luck right now. But I do think he's a young guy still. And I know, talking to people around him, talking to people in the organization, he says he wants to be one of the all-time greats. Well, we need to start seeing it because this organization is relying on him. He's carrying this organization right now. It's a mess. And look, they've got a mess off the court as well. I mean, getting people in the seats, their TV situation is a mess. I just think there's a lot of issues with the Pelicans right now.
But I think the attendance situation, it cures itself with winning. I think there are people that want to see a winning NBA team, but they don't want to waste their time going to the arena and seeing they get the brains beat out. This is different than the Saints as opposed to, again, the NBA here in New Orleans.
Yeah, I've said that before. People say it's not a basketball town. It's a New Orleans town,
right.
and New Orleans will support New Orleans.
I agree.
They'll support the Pelicans.
No doubt.
If they see a functional organization.
Right, and they don't right now. David Griffin was supposed to supply that. It has not come to fruition as of yet.
Yeah, no, a lot of issues now.
And it looks like, again, the tape is running out on David Griffin.
Yeah, look, I think they want everything to be fine. I know they value stability. They like David Griffin. He's had a lot of stops and starts.
Right.
A lot of mistakes. Last year was a lost year.
Yes.
On and off the court, set back the progress. Now, can he rectify it? I don't know how he does it with this setback.
This year could be a lost year as well.
Well, the way things have started, certainly.
Yep, no doubt about it. Jeff Duncan, thanks so much for joining us here on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Yeah, thank you.
Remember, you catch Jeff on, again, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, The Advocate, and also contribute to Fox 8 Sports. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there are plenty of ways to catch this program now. We're so blessed to have so many ways that you can check us out. The WLAE-TV YouTube page, ericasher.com. Our first rebroadcast is tonight at 6 p.m. on WLAE-TV. 10 o'clock tonight on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2. Friday night, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock, WLAE-TV. And then 2 a.m. on The Deuce every Saturday morning, every Saturday afternoon, 5 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. Always on our social media platforms, at Eric_Asher on Twitter, Eric Asher on Facebook, Inside New Orleans Show on Instagram. So again, a lot of ways to catch our program. You catch me on the radio weekdays 4 to 6 on 106.1 FM. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, again, the Anchor app is our home base for our podcast. We're on all podcasting platforms, iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app, mobile apps. You can take the show with you anywhere. So check us out on the radio 4 to 6, 106.1 weekdays. Also want to thank our underwriters that make this show possible. Please continue to support the underwriters that support our program, and we thank them for their support. Also, again, thanks to Jeff Duncan for joining us on the program tonight, as well as the great staff here at WLAE-TV. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Will Ingram, Alex Chacon, and of course the best director in the business, William Hill. For Jeff Duncan, I'm Eric Asher. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week for a Thanksgiving edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Until then, my name is Eric Asher. See you soon.